I've known about Anthony Tudor myself since I was a very little girl, since my mother, who was a dancer in New York, studied with Mr. Tudor for many years and used to tell me wonderful stories about him as I was growing up and becoming a dancer myself. He was one of the great choreographers of the 20th century. It became very clear that we did have the dancers to do something of Mr. Tudor's, not one of his big ballets, but something more manageable for us, and that it would actually be a wonderful fit for our program. That initial conversation went on to include Sally Bliss, who is head of the Tudor Trust. We went forward with numerous meetings so that she could be sure that we were indeed able to do this ballet in the way in which it needs to be done, which is with a great deal of love and care and authenticity, and that we could go into performance with dancers who could really handle the technique, handle the character work, handle the musicality, and just the overall genius of Anthony Tudor. So that took us into setting a time with Amanda McCarrow to come out, which was very exciting. For me especially, since when I was dancing in New York City and training at ABT, Ms. McCarrow was becoming a prima ballerina there and had always been someone that I'd admired tremendously as a very strong artistic proponent of classical ballet.
What I find is in the university level dance, they're more interested in who was Mr. Tudor. After they start working on the piece and they start learning the movement, then they start really wanting to know who he was and what he was about. And I think that's what's going to keep him alive. He did it in 1953 at Jacob's Pillow, which was a place he loved to work. He had time at his disposal, which was very important to him. He hated to be rushed. He really liked to just be able to be free in his creative process, which, I mean, who doesn't? And there's a lot of love in this piece, and I think it comes across. And I love teaching it to new dancers for the first time. I love seeing them discover the same things I discovered in it the first time. It's the same. He's in his pieces, and it's like you can hear his voice through the physical movement. It was also very important to Mr. Tudor that you got from his works whatever you got. He really didn't want to impose too much meaning. Usually the synopsis that he wrote were usually pretty short and basic in their emotional explanation. So I certainly hope people love this piece as much as I do.
My very first class, oh my gosh, I was so scared, I can't even begin to tell you, and I hid at the back. Well, you can never do that with Tudor. And he went, "Hey, Maple Leaf Forever, come here." Come down here, and oh my gosh, I almost died. So that was my first time that I actually, that was how I met him. He created at the Pillow little improvisations. It's about two young people on a rainy day, and they have nothing to do, and they go up into their attic, and they find a piano bench, and they have a scarf, and out of that they create this wonderful world of creativity, which has everything to do from Pavlova and Morkin, and it's got mazurka in it, and it's got babies and donkeys and Roman soldiers, kings and queens. It's just, it's a masterpiece. I really feel that, and so I think it's a wonderful piece, especially for university students, even though they're a little bit older than maybe what the children were that he had in his mind. But it really shows them about Tudor's choreography, the nuance and the sensitivity, and just never doing too much. And it's a great experience to learn this piece.
What I most enjoyed, I think, was the process of the whole piece. We started out in the fall when Amanda came, and working with her was so amazing. She was just so great, and you could tell how much she cared about Tudor's work and especially about Little Improv. She really immediately brought us right into the piece. I think what was most enlightening to me was when Amanda told us one of Tudor's principles is that the characters that he wanted to create were actually in the choreography. So that as the dancer, I didn't need to go and artificially bring my idea of what a little girl is like and then bring that to the dance, but that just by being in the moment and investing in his choreography that character would be there too. What she brought was definitely invaluable. She came and set the piece on the stage and brought a new and a fresh perspective, which was, I think, just what we needed before opening night, before performing the piece, was to have newness brought to the piece. And she changed a few things, but that was good. That made us, again, be so much in the present moment to get all of those little extra things that she just wanted us to be better and have it done how Anthony Tudor would want it done.
At first, when we watched the piece, didn't really get too engaged. It's lighthearted, and that's not quite what I was expecting. But then once we learned it, it really became a different experience. He's choreographed it very precisely, very exactly, and if you just do what he said to do, you'll convey his message. And I really got involved in the piece. I think that was my favorite part, was developing the character and the relationship between my partners and myself. And I think that's part of his artistry is so good. It looks so carefree and natural, like kids just playing. But the difficulty comes in performing it and doing it exactly like, it's got very clear musicality, and if you don't do it with the music, it just looks off, and everyone can tell. And so it's very specific that way, and being able to go through it with no stops and no hiccups like a live performance, as with anything, is the hard part, and making it, you just have that one shot, making it work right then. When Sally Bliss came at the end and helped us refine things right before performance time, I really, at that point, understood just how specifically it had been set, where every head direction, whether you're looking up to the audience or down at the girl, is set, and every arm movement and flare and position is set. And so she definitely helped me do some of those things more accurately, which I hadn't even thought about before.
I think he was a very conscientious man who had a great creative eye for not just technical aspects, but also for the emotional aspect that art, includes. That was my favorite part of the whole experience, I think, was especially when we were performing on stage. I mean, you always pay attention to the technical, aspect of, performing, but being able to really become that character throughout the entire ballet was really wonderful. It was a very special, unique, warm experience that I will carry with me forever. Had you told me in 4 years, 3 years, that dance something like this in college, I would have laughed at you and walked away. But I mean, that speaks leaps and bounds, for such a wonderful opportunity to have that kind of exposure to such greatness at this level.